Welcome, acolytes, my little nasty knowledge-seeking ghouls. As you can see, I'm actually reacting to a video named Unpacking the Most Underrated RPG Ever Made by Musick. Now, I already seen this video. I find it extremely funny. The guy has a talent and a funny bone that, well, not really much people can compete with it. And in the end of the day, this is actually the thing that reflects Dragon Dogma the best. Now, what I say this just purely because I am a really big fan of Dragon's Dogma 1. Is it a perfect game? No. Is it fun to play? Yes. Does it have a coherent story? Yes and no. It's effing clunky as F, but it's actually quite fun. And it's a little bit of a crazy game. It's not a really get serious and be serious game. No, it's a little bit of a crazy thing. So that's why I think a funny thing like this actually matches it the most. But let's see it. And let's just find out for ourselves if this is actually worth the freaking thing, the freaking fun, and the freaking you know what. So, let's start.
Dragon's Dogma, an RPG that to some will need no introduction, and a game that has been recommended to me to cover more times than I can count, but also a title that some may not be too familiar with.
Yeah, and by the way, if you don't know Dragon's Dogma, I think it's about for €4 at Steam right now. So go and catch it, please, because it's really... Is it €4? About. I don't remember how it's cheap. It's dirt cheap and has a lot of to do if you actually can dodge the clunkiness.
As following its release in 2012, had an incredible launch in Japan, but struggled in sales in the Western markets. Now, over 10 years after release, the game is seen by many to be one of the most underrated RPG experiences ever created, with fans claiming that Dragon's Dogma deserves to stand shoulder to shoulder with the massive RPGs that serve as the game's foundations, such as The Elder Scrolls and The Witcher. But what is it about this RPG that has generated such a dedicated following over the years? What is going on? What lies under the game's surface that...
No, and please, if already just the start, that's funny as F, and this is just things that happen in the game all the time. And by the way, yes, it is an underrated RPG, but it's understandable if somebody actually doesn't like it.
It impresses so many, while seemingly being so frequently overlooked. And what could we expect to see from its soon-to-be-released sequel? Well, my friends, today we will find out, diving right into the game's world, and with the help of Beard Al and his weird pal, uncovering what makes up this hidden gem. The good. Oh man, that's so epic. The bad. Pal, what the fuck are you doing? And the genuinely head-scratching.
What? I'm just at an absolute loss for words.
This is the essence. This is just the essence.
I've got nothing.
My name's Mitch Mannix, and this is a spoiler-free look into the criminally underrated Dragon's Dogma.
Yeah.
Dragon's Dogma opens with a prologue controlling a hero named Sivan and his companion Salde in the pursuit of a dragon that gets an epic introduction just moments later, revealing himself to the pair and raining down fire. However, failing to intimidate Salde, it seems, who strides on giving zero fucks about the whole situation. Progressing into the ruins, we are introduced to a core mechanic of Dragon's Dogma, with Sivan here summoning and recruiting a couple of companions. Companions being a special type of additional NPC party members, in the game dubbed pawns, but I will be referring to them as companions, due to me not trusting YouTube for not screwing me over saying...
I understand, yes. Yes, I understand. Yeah, and by the way, you can make so much. Yeah, he shows the character generation anyway, so you will see. Yeah, come on.
Saying that word over and over. These companions are a big pillar of the game, and we'll definitely get a far better look at them a little later on. Working through the ruins, we get a first look at the game's combat, while being tasked with taking down a chimera. which altogether feels very indicative of one of the developer Capcom's other properties, taking down this foe in a very Monster Hunter feeling style. Following Savan's victory, he is beckoned further into the dungeon's secrets, concluding the game's prelude. Following the introduction, we begin our journey, of course, at the character creator, with Dragon's Dogma featuring quite an in-depth character creator for a single-player RPG, especially for the time, with a wide range of body types, facial features, and hairstyles available.
Why? Just...
Well then.
All in the game's slightly goofy-looking, almost cartoon-like graphic style. But we of course already have our hero for this journey, calling upon the one and only Beard Al, looking more like an ancestor of L'Oreal Diablo than the famous musician, but our hero nonetheless. Starting our adventure with an epic cutscene, where a huge dragon descends upon and begins destroying the home of our hero Al, who quick as a flash grabs a nearby weapon to show him who's boss. Which goes about as well as you would expect at this early stage, ending with the dragon actually stealing Al's heart, in an actually oddly romantic turn of events, with the tracking down and reclaiming of one's heart being the primary plotline of Dragon's Dogma's main questline. Now waking up after the dragon attack, we pick our initial class in the dagger and bow-wielding Strider, and Dragon's Dogma introduces us...
Striders, I remember those. Those efforts were just overtuned. Just overtuned. There was nothing else to say. I think the stronger class in the endgame was a magician bowman, but this guy was really... Like at the start, you didn't have anything better.
To a couple of Al's neighbors, who are clearly quite rightly confused as to how he is still alive, with the town's chief putting it down to a curse, and Al's lady friend running around only making this theory more convincing. Now out into the first settlement of the game, we are granted our first companion, as we saw with Saban in the prelude, with a chap named Rook appearing from our portal to join our party, with us also finding out that these companions are called Myrmidons, non-human entities that appear from an unknown place and can be swapped out to assist in taking on the land's evils. Additional muscle that is timely needed, as when travelling from our starting town to the encampment to the west, another battle against a large foe plays out, this time with a huge ogre, leading to the camp's defences along with Al and his companion unleashed.
By the way, this was epic at the start. This was like the first time I fought an ogre like that. It was beautiful. And clunky. Very, very clunky.
Unleashing hell against the monstrosity. Well, unleashing hell, as well as, when it comes to our companion, some deadly massaging of the knee, but nonetheless leading to victory, and at least a handful of the settlement's guards a little punch-drunk. Finally getting a chance to explore the settlement, Al comes across a talking stone that provides us with another of the game's core mechanics, by the way of a permanent companion. These NPCs, unlike the standard companions, can be customized, given abilities and gear, as well as leveled in interchangeable classes, unlike the standard companions that are simply swapped out for another once out-leveled, and come with a predetermined class and stats. Acting as more of a classic RPG companion, we of course call upon the one and only Weird Pal to act as our right-hand man in this adventure.
Feel yourself for combat!
I already seen this and it's still so funny. It's just this beautiful face. Oh, I love it so much, and he does it like fully justice. It's just, yes, because Dragon's Dogma is a freaking clunky nice game. It's just it is weird. It's just, if you take it serious, you're playing it wrong. It has its moments, but not permanently, like not always. Most of the time it's a clunky mess, and it's just beautiful for that.
And we are treated to a cutscene of all the companions swearing their allegiance to us, the Arisen. Now, with a foot into my first time with the game, I have to admit that I was still unsure as to what it was about the game that really made it stand out so much to so many, when considering it's so underrated. But it...
By the way, just an interesting part about that. The game start is freaking boring. It's badly, really, really badly done. And especially if you think about it like this, you actually can go in an end game region with your level 1 character. Not an endgame, a higher level thing. And you won't do any damage, it's like 1 damage per hit. And it just, because the freaking defense in this game, it's not percentage based like World of Warcraft, what I'm playing now. If you have, I don't know, like, let's just say 100 armor is minus 5% physical damage that you take. No, in Dragon's Dogma it's a 1-to-1 it converts of 1-to-1. That means if you actually get if you have 10 defense, it negates exactly 10 damage that the enemy does. If you have 10 attack, you have exactly 10 attack and you do exactly 10 damage, except for the damage that actual, or magic damage, it's irrelevant in that case, and does exactly 10 damage. So the negation there is a little bit funny, but after you get past that, it gets a bit better and it gets fun, but it gets really, really fun after a while if you give it a chance.
It was still early days yet. Training was up next, where the game shows us that certain classes will be effective against certain foes, making group composition an element to remember.
Yeah.
After which, well...
And by the way, the groups you could actually do, it was irrelevant what you wanted to do. If you want a ranger, a warrior, a mage, and, well, a rogue, you can do that. If you want 4 pure warriors, you can do that. It depends on you. You have a lot of freedom there.
While taking a much-earned nap, the silence is broken when a Hydra turns up, as if the game couldn't go more than a few minutes without a battle against a large monster, making me question why Al looks so hilariously surprised.
Wait, I have this one up a bit. Let's do this because I didn't see it.
Epic boss battle unfolds, with the game once again teaching us the nuances of taking on this particular foe. And with a quick use of the surrounding explosives, the Hydra is taken out, and we are introduced to another...
And by the way, the gigantic monsters. Beautiful. Beautiful.
...of the game's minor characters, before getting a chance to catch our breath at the camp. Pal?
Too many possessions can be more a hindrance than a help.
It is a fine time to take stock and revise our party and equipment.
Oh, okay. Delivering the newly acquired head of the Hydra to the Duke of the Land in the game's main town settlement, it's here where Dragon's Dogma opens up, with in addition to the main plotline a number of side quests becoming available, directly from NPCs wandering around, as well as with the game's notice boards. Side quests range from kill and escort quests for items and to increase reputation with some of the world's NPCs, to more story-based quests helping out the locals. Do I want to know what's going on over there? This game, man. This game.
Yeah, she
With
found
now
some
a full team
nice,
of 4,
nice
it's here where Dragon's
Krita,
Dogma's
if you know what
combat
I mean.
really started to click with me. With developers Capcom being much more experienced with action games such as Devil May Cry, it's hard not to see that translated over to this RPG, with combat often being very fast-paced and over-the-top, but with it also being incredibly satisfying. Party members holding mobs for a chance at big damage, some crazy fast combos, mixed in with some insane-looking moves to pull off. It was really refreshing to see a combat system so unapologetically focused on feeling fun to use, but still requiring a decent amount of skill to use effectively. Proven, I have to admit, from time to time after getting a little too excited. Oh dear lord. In Dragon's Dogma, the combat classes level independently from the player character level, and as each class levels up, more passives and abilities are unlocked to mix and match while increasing in power throughout the game.
But you also get different permanent stats for every level up. So if your character levels up, you get different stats from a warrior than you would get from a mage or a rogue. So there's something that you can actually win mix just a bit, just a heads up.
The game has 9 classes, consisting of 3 basic, advanced and hybrid classes to choose from, and switch over to by simply visiting the NPC in the capital's inn. Each class also has its own set of gear attached to it, which can be purchased, earned as a quest reward, as well as of course found out in the world, with some gear usable with a number of classes, as well as items for specific classes available to track down. with a highlight for me at least being able to get my hands on a golden bastard. The class system is also applied to the player's main companions, in our case Old Weird Pal, whose class can be changed at any time by the same NPC for him to level up a new spec with its own abilities and passives to choose from, with new gear such as weapons and armor also being able to be provided to our NPC, which is all too well considering Pal's habit of being launched into orbit, along with his habit of attempting to face tank house-sized boulders. It is in the main town that we also get a look at the hub for the companion system.
Yeah, and by the way, the companions, they were clunky. There was a lot of clunk to have there. So, that stuff doesn't... Yeah, it's true. All of it, it's true.
Confused as to why a companion system would literally have its own guild hall, I was quickly made aware of just how deep this system goes. For example, Dragon's Dogma was in fact populating my game with other players' companions this whole time, fully customized and at various levels, ready to be recruited if so desired. And yes, I was turned on to this by bumping into NPCs that even for Capcom would have been oddball and slightly risque characters, such as a mighty tank the size of a fire hydrant, as well as this lovely lady. The Companion Guild, along with a number of player companions, also contains one of the land's rift stones, large giant rocks that we saw earlier that transports the player to the rift, the home of these so-called Miradoms, and a place where a player can essentially shop for additional party members, using the search function to search for the perfect addition to the party, as well as being able to swap out any that are already equipped. The game even lets you leave a note and an item for the player who created the companion when dismissing them, with either a positive or negative review.
I served as best as I know how. My apologies.
Advancing further through the game while getting a chance to try out another class in the form of a spell-slinging mage. Frequently we were tasked with taking trips across the land to seek out quest objectives. Dragon's Dogma uses an interesting fast travel system in the form of its ferry stones, items that once used allows the players to travel to only a handful of predefined locations, with a small amount of port crystals also available to place down custom locations for the ferry stones to work with also. This quite scaled down fast travel system, I have to admit, did have the odd moment where it got on my nerves, not really knowing where the best place to put the crystals for custom waypoints without knowing any prior knowledge of the game, not knowing if I'll need to come back to a location or not, and most of the time, like the magnum ammo in survival horror games, just holding on to them until the end, like an idiot. But what this did do was put more of a focus on travelling by foot, and in Dragon's Dogma, let's just say that travelling by foot was initially far more exciting and eventful than I was anticipating. Spread across the land were not only full-blown roaming world bosses, but also constant tough encounters waiting for unsuspecting players, ready to jump out at any moment.
Oh, Jesus Christ, what the flying fuck was that?
Griffins, dragons...
I had the exactly same reaction on the exactly same place. This was...
and Cyclops enemies can ambush travelling players, and when coupled with some of the packs of mobs and the increase in difficulty when night falls, the game does not mess around when it comes to testing the player's understanding of their class and group composition. Safe to say, trying to wander through the night to a settlement quickly turns into a gauntlet, battling through enemies lurking in the darkness, leading to seeing the flickering light of a friendly settlement providing a wave of relief. The save system is not without its drawbacks, however, as since the player can be ambushed while travelling, and with this of course locking out the ability to manually save, lead to on defeat being kicked back to the game's last autosave, which is quite the tricycle ballbag when that autosave was 20 minutes travel time back at the settlement we set out from.
Oh God!
Leave it to me, Master.
Oh, shut up, pal. Working through both the game's main plotline, as well as taking time to take on side quests from time to time, I can say that a gripping plot or a cast of memorable characters is not exactly Dragon's Dogma's strong suit, and without spoiling anything, overall feels quite generic, but with enough there to frame the game's world and the player's role within it, whilst on occasion swerving pretty close to the games that most likely served as this game's inspiration.
I am the Dragon Forged.
Inspiration.
Right.
Characters in Dragon's Dogma again feel quite bland, with only a couple really getting anywhere close to memorable, with some being memorable but for the wrong reasons, such as here with a goblin leader's epic failure at a dramatic exit.
You like? The end is nigh!
The game's characters do, however, tie into another of the game's mechanics, featuring a reputation system to generate relationships with chosen NPCs, to unlock additional quests and sometimes even extra items available in shops.
Makes
Safe
sense.
to say, if you're looking for an enthralling tale to sink your teeth into, filled with interesting characters to meet, you will most likely be left disappointed with Dragon's Dogma. But on the flip side, what does add heaps of character into the game is what I like to call its Capcom goofy stylings. From over-the-top facial expressions to unintentionally disturbing-looking NPCs, there is an element of cheesiness and goofiness that can be seen in Capcom games since back in the early 90s, which for me as a massive Capcom fan was a bonus. The game also delivers on some wholesome moments, but most of the time coming from your companions themselves, rather than individuals met while adventuring, with party members constantly commenting on goings-on, giving tips on both quest progress and even battle tactics when taking on tough encounters, and was one of my favourite elements of the game, creating a bond between companions as well as adding a lot of immersion when playing.
Is known as the Shadow Fort, built to ward against a goblin invasion.
So the question remains, what is it about this RPG that continues to impress its players so many years after release, but with it still staying far from the notoriety of so many other highly praised alternatives? For me at least, after finally getting to look at the game, the answer to both lies with the developer Capcom and the team around the game's creation. Having much more experience creating games such as Devil May Cry, and with this actually being Capcom's first open-world RPG, this foundation led to the game stumbling when it came to the game's plot, and even its scale, but the sheer amount of classes available, coupled with the insanely satisfying Monster Hunter-feeling combat encounters, the task of both gearing out and min-maxing your character, as well as permanent and non-permanent hot swappable team members, along with its multiplayer social networking features, makes this game feel like nothing I've ever experienced before. The game, also like Monster Hunter, thankfully does not mess around when it comes to its difficulty, creating a gameplay experience centered around finding that perfect feeling class and build, and working towards taking down the game's challenging encounters for a chance at the best gear. I found myself eager to roll another class to see what kind of crazy build and party combination I could come up with next, even despite the NPC party AI being a little dumb at times to say the least. This strong focus also being something that Capcom doubled down on with the game's DLC, which is included in the game's Dark Arisen version, featuring an endgame zone named Bitter Black Isle, which adds a whole island filled with the toughest monsters and boss battles in the game, akin to the Ringed City DLC for Dark Souls 3. And with it a new gearing system for even more endgame options, to run alongside the base game's Dragon, an optional endgame boss battle that includes network elements, where whole groups of players look to take down a huge dragon in separate phases collectively, with apparently Beard Owl not being up to scratch as the thing buggered off as soon as I turned up, and with the boss being accessed in probably the most Capcom goofy style of the whole game.
Ah, my arms!
Simply put, Dragon's Dogma puts a focus on RPG elements that most other franchises put lower down the list of priorities when fine-tuning their games, and pulls it off in a way that only Capcom could come close to. The story and open world itself leaves a lot to be desired, but the fluidity and overall combat experience is exceptional, and makes games such as The Witcher look laughable in comparison, whilst being intertwined in a range of mechanics that you will struggle to find elsewhere. But with all this on offer, it's a shame that the game's first few hours are so slow, and failed to showcase what ends up making this RPG such a standout experience. I was exactly the same as I think a lot of players were when they first picked up the game, and chalked it up to being quite a generic RPG looking to emulate games such as Dragon Age, and I have a strong suspicion that its first few hours are a primary factor as to why this game remains so underrated, with many players giving up before things get interesting. But now, after sticking with the game and really seeing just how and why this game is such a hidden gem, I for one am extremely excited to see what we have coming up very soon in the game's sequel. As after now over 10 years for Capcom to refine their formula, Dragon's Dogma 2 could end up being quite the sneak attack sensation. Indeed.
Yep, it could.
Thank you so much for watching. Have you played Dragon's Dogma, are looking forward to its sequel, or have any other suggestions for interesting RPG?
Yeah, and that's why I say, because Dragon's Dogma, it's not a perfect game. It's a silly, clunky little thing it's just fun. That's all, it's just fun. It has a good gameplay, the story is halfway acceptable, and it's clunky as F. It has so many moments that are just fun. I could repeat it 100 different times. It's just very, very fun. I love it. I love it. But as it is, Acolytes, good night.